And I think the technologies that we've seen as of late and what the future is going to bring will continue just to expand and build out these value-added products that ultimately are regulated from a scientific perspective and ultimately bring value to the consumer, whether it be a health-focused trait or a compositional change. Whatever that looks like today and into the future should add significant value to the end consumer.
Welcome to Agbioscience, the #1 podcast in the world for innovation in food, animal health, plant science, ag tech, and agriculture. Welcome back to Agbioscience. I'm Kayla Chittister, producer of the podcast. And this week, I had to work really hard on this hosting gig. But Scott Beck, president of Beck's Hybrids, thank you for coming in and sitting in the hosting chair today.
Oh, I've been looking forward to it, especially with being able to talk with Andy LaVigne and Dave Treinen, both with American Seed Trade Association.
We've talked about having this conversation for a while, and it was a really good one. I'm curious, what were your favorite high-level takeaways from today?
Well, seed is where it all starts.
Yeah.
And so it's such an exciting conversation and an exciting industry to be in because of the value that we deliver year after year. And so, having the kind of the high-level overview from someone like Andy, who's been in that leadership role in American Seed Trade Association for a couple decades now. And then Dave Treinen, a leader in a global company, Syngenta, and his perspective on the importance of, regulatory and how that needs to move along in order to bring innovation to farmers and to consumers quicker. And then from, someone that sits in our seat where we're a family-owned business and, serving farmers across the Midwest and, the role that we play in being a voice for not only the seed industry, but for the farmer.
You kind of talked about your experience, your full-time experience being in the industry and really being a part of ASTA. And so from the Beck seat, what was really exciting to you about getting to have this conversation being a member of ASTA?
Well, ASTA serves, I think, three main purposes. One is being a voice for the people in agriculture and the people of where agriculture starts with the seed. And so when we need to speak with our officials, when we need advocacy at the state level, ASTA is there. And it's accessible. I'm one of the Central Region vice presidents, and so I've been reaching out to members in the Central Region to get their input on how ASTA can improve, what are the main issues for them. So being that voice is a central function of ASTA, and then advocacy, where ASTA can step into and advocate on the needs of the seed companies, the needs of the farmer, and speak to the issues that are important to us. And then finally, the networking. And this is where I think most members feel the most value. And that's when, we go to the annual conference or the summer convention or those types of things where we get to rub shoulders and have conversations with members across the entire seed industry.
Yeah, those learnings in that ecosystem is invaluable for sure.
Yeah. It's all based in relationship. And so that's where a lot of relationships are started, get built, and then advance.
Well, thank you for bringing American Seed Trade Association to us today, and thank you for hosting. We appreciate it. It's
been a pleasure.
Please enjoy Scott Beck's conversation with Andy LaVigne and Dave Treinen on Agbioscience.
Andy and Dave, thank you both for joining us. The American Seed Trade Association is one of the oldest trade organizations in the United States. So I'll start with you, Andy. Share more about the work ASTA does and who they aim to serve.
Thanks, Scott. And it's great to be here today with you and Dave, and especially representing the American Seed Trade Association. As an association, we were started in 1883, and our goal at that time was to bring high-quality seed and germplasm to America's farmers, and that continues to be our goal today. We've got roughly 670 member companies across the United States and around the world, providing seed for everything essentially that's planted, from alfalfa to zucchini in every production method, so organic, conventional, and biotechnology. very diverse, but also with that one goal in mind, is providing the farmer with the highest quality seed in order to have that perfect chance or best chance for having a good crop, getting that goal that they have set for their operation in their production. So it's a great pleasure to represent this industry. And as we like to say, everything starts with a seed.
So true. Dave, you got anything to add?
The thing that I would add is Andy's being way too modest. It's one of the coolest industries and coolest associations, in my opinion, to be a part of. And I'm fortunate to be chair this year. But our company, Syngenta, has been longtime members of the American Seed Trade Organization. And from our perspective, can't speak enough for the work that Andy and his team do, not only domestically, but internationally on behalf of the seed business. And we'll get through that as we go through the podcast today. But, I think the other piece that Andy didn't mention is, we're not about politics. We're about advancing agriculture and everything and all things related to seeds. And our hope today is that the audience gets a better view of what and how we do things and the great work that Andy and his team do every day.
Thanks, Dave. That's a great segue into the next question. American agriculture finds itself in an era mixed with challenges, whether it's market volatility, global trade, rising input costs, the list goes on. Where does seed production and distribution, and really the seed industry as a whole, find itself in this mix? And what are the challenges unique to ASTA members?
Scott, that's a great question. And when we look at it, with seed being such a global commodity or product that we produce for the world's farmers, when we look at it here in the United States, this whole issue of trade, especially in corn and soybeans and our row crops, it really is being impacted right now. There is that tension within the global movement of commodities and what it does to America's farmers. And when that tension and uncertainty hits America's farmers, it also hits America's seed companies. So we've got to be very active at the table in the conversations about trade agreements, about tariffs and their potential impacts, and about the cost of production. How do we make sure that that farmer has that best quality seed to produce the highest yielding, highest quality crop possible? So get involved in a lot of issues that deal with plant breeding, research and development, and then movement of grains around the world. Those kind of things, in representing not only the seed industry, but our colleagues and peers and customers in the grain and commodities marketplaces. So those kind of things impact our operations on a daily basis, a monthly basis, and an annual basis.
Well, as you talk about the challenges, one of the things that really comes to mind, for myself being in the industry now, really 40 plus years full time, it's the advancements in seed genetics and biotechnology traits that have actually provided more value to the farmer every year. When you think about other rising input costs, and seed is one of those costs that's continued to go up, but other inputs like fuel, fertilizer, crop protection, what do we get more out of those inputs today than we got 30 years ago? Really, it's the same commodity, but seed's different. And a recent study where we looked at from 2007 to the present, so that 18-year period, seed cost on average for corn went or increased about $66 an acre. At the same time, the output for the farmer, or the production increase, amounted to $188 per acre. So, quite an improvement. For every, you divide that over that 18-year period, and for every $3.60 you got about $10 of additional benefit per acre over that time period. So, seed is a very exciting industry to be a part of, because the advancements that are made every year are contributing to more and more to the farmer's bottom line and the resilience that new varieties offer. Dave, you got anything to add?
Yeah, great point, Scott. And I think in my career as well, if you go back when I started versus where we are today, the hybrids and varieties, at least for the row crop or field crop side of the business, are completely different, and they're very resilient. And that's a direct function of the technology and the breeding and all the work that goes into developing new varieties across not only field crops but all crops. And to me, I think the interesting thing, given the challenges that we face today in agriculture, when the backs are up against the wall is when we tend to buckle down and innovate. And I think that innovation that we've seen in your 40 years or my 30 years, at least even with the advent of biotechnology, I think speaks to innovation within agriculture. And I think from the American seed trade side of the equation, we're in the middle of all of those conversations and making sure that those innovations have a place and a way to get into the marketplace that add value to the farmer producers.
Certainly, and that leads really well into the next question. ASTA has been a long-standing voice on policy. What are some of the biggest regulatory discussions shaping the industry right now, domestically and internationally?
Ooh, Dave, you want to start with that one, or you want me to?
I'll let you be the leadoff hitter, Andy, and then I'll come in behind you.
Well, I think with anything, especially in an industry that is so innovative and constantly looking to improve the products that they produce, helping the government stay up with that constant innovation is a challenge, because as they look to develop policy or regulation, they develop it as of today. So they start with that activity. But 5 years from now, when they get the policy put in place, they're still developing it from past experiences instead of where we're going as an industry. So that becomes probably, Scott, our biggest challenge as you discover and you improve varieties or bring new traits into the marketplace. How can we ensure the policies will keep up? The other challenge I think that we face, and this may be, it's both at the state level and the federal level, is the regulatory community having the experience and understanding of the science behind the policies or behind the innovation that we're bringing to the marketplace so they can set policies. And a lot of times they're looking at it more from what could happen instead of reality and what the intention is with those new characteristics or traits. And so we have to make sure that the regulatory community understands where the science is, why we've developed it, and the importance of it. We're not going to bring a new seed variety into the marketplace for farmers to use. It doesn't perform like we say it's going to perform and may have an adverse effect on that farmer's operation or the environment. So those kind of things really do impact us as we innovate at a rapid pace in our industry today.
So that really leads well into the next question of how is domestic policy impacting the organization's ability to improve the opportunities for ASTA member companies, the seed innovators, to do business internationally? And what are the industry's biggest opportunities?
Well, Scott, when we look at those opportunities, we think that new breeding techniques or improved and evolving breeding techniques like gene editing, like we see in healthcare and pharmaceuticals, we're using those techniques in plants. We better understand what makes a plant do what it does and how do we take advantage of those naturally occurring positive characteristics of a plant and breed away from those negative characteristics of a plant, because Mother Nature produces these plants to defend themselves. And sometimes we want to make sure that those defenses are not adversely impacting that commercial production from that plant. So what are the policies with respect to gene editing or any other breeding methods as we go forward so it doesn't hold us back with respect to bringing new seeds and new varieties to the marketplace?
Hey, Scott, I wouldn't mind going back to that last question you asked Andy and, some of the challenges that we're facing here and, with policy and everything. And, from a technology provider perspective, it takes a lot of time and a lot of money to bring a new product into the marketplace. And I think as Andy alluded to is when we don't have alignment necessarily across all the governing bodies and the regulatory agencies, it just slows things down and really drags down the ability to bring innovative products to farmer customers across the United States, but also ultimately across the globe as well. So I think when Andy talks about some of the challenges, it's really getting all the regulatory agencies aligned with the process and the timing and the understanding of what the technology or innovation is designed to do, and then to move quickly on the ability to regulate and bring those products into the marketplace. And from a technology provider perspective, it takes hundreds of millions of dollars and a very, very long time to bring those into the industry. And if there was a more synchronized or streamlined process, Andy, I think it might be able to speed up innovation that ultimately is going to benefit the consumer, benefit the farmer, benefit the environment. I mean, everybody wins when the system is working in a very efficient and effective manner. So, Andy, I don't know if you want to add on to that, but I wanted to come back because I think that the asynchronous system that we operate in today in the U.S. as well as across the globe really is a hindrance to driving innovation.
Yeah, Dave, I think you hit that one out of the park. It really is that issue of how do we make sure that as we bring new products to the marketplace, those products are recognized and approved, not only in the U.S., but they have to be recognized and approved in those countries that we may export grains to, say, from the Midwest. And so it's China, it's Europe, it's Japan, it's Korea, all of those markets that are key to move those grains. And so there's got to be some consistency throughout the global marketplace as well. So we rely on our trade negotiators to make sure that our agreements are contain clauses that address those issues. But I'll also add, and Scott, you can hit on this one, but seed companies are farmers. We have to deal with all the same laws and regulations that the farmers are dealing with. So whether they're pesticide laws or waters of the U.S. laws or labor laws, all of those various factors come into play when we're producing the crop. The crop that we happen to produce is seed. And so that regulatory aspect that farmers are complying with, all of our seed companies that are producing the seed for their customers are also dealing with those in that production process. So we're active on all of those levels. Farm Bill impacts our members as we go forward. So anything that you look at with respect to what a farmer is complying with, our seed companies are having to do that as well in order to bring those products to the marketplace.
Yeah, it's certainly the government regulatory things that we have to comply with, but also when we're bringing a trait to market, there's the compliance of making sure that we're spraying the right amounts of crop protection materials on it to make sure we maintain the efficacy, and the trait technology is holding on the efficacy of the trait itself, so that when it goes to the farmer, that's part of the stewardship process. So it's layers upon layers of activities that we do to ensure a crop of seed that is going to provide the farmer with the most value.
Andy, I might tee this statement up to you, but I think also as well, when we think about the American Seed Trade Association, we have a very diverse group of members that we're focused on that primarily are marketing and selling seeds within the United States and North America. But would you speak to just the influence that ASTA has across the globe internationally as well? Because when we think about these challenges and we think about what our companies and our members are doing across the board in whatever crop it is, it's really also to solve a challenge that we have in feeding the world and making sure that we've got a consistent and stable and safe food supply as well. And I think sometimes American Seed Trade doesn't always get credit for the work that you and your team do behind the scenes or internationally. So I want to tee that up and give you a chance to answer that.
Yeah, Dave, thanks. And that is a good point. The U.S. seed industry is the largest in the world, followed not too far behind by the China's seed association or seed industry. People don't think about, we export roughly $1.7 billion worth of seed every year. And when we multiply that, when you look at the products that are produced from those seeds, it's roughly $176 billion, give or take. And so that's a pretty big growth factor of what is put in the ground and then what is harvested and exported. So when we look at it from the ASTA standpoint, we're involved in a couple of USDA programs. They're called the cooperative programs, and it's the market access program and the foreign market development program. And those two allow us to work with governments around the world and research institutions and seed companies to develop policy that's more favorable for bringing in new technology and innovation. Also helping them produce seed that will help feed the people. Keep them at peace and provide good daily diets, nutritious diets for their people. So a lot of work is done there in that international arena. A lot of people look to the U.S. and how our system is set up, and we like to communicate how it's evolved and how we can help them evolve their sectors as well. You got to realize that outside of the U.S. or Northern Europe, most of the growth around the world is happening in the Southern Hemisphere or parts of Asia. And those are opportunities to export our products, the agriculture products in general for the U.S., but also to improve their systems as their populations grow dramatically. So we feel we have that obligation to help take a leadership role, to help them in that area, but also provide opportunities for market development in the future.
From berries to dairies, from crop advisors to data analyzers, Indiana Farm Bureau is at the forefront of the top issues impacting Indiana agriculture. No matter your role in the ag industry, Indiana Farm Bureau membership means you'll always have a champion and an advisor. And because so much of your time is focused on your own enterprise, it's also good to know Indiana Farm Bureau is always working to fight for the future of agriculture. We come together to advocate for rural viability, the protection of property rights, competitive tax policies, and against burdensome regulations. Whether our members need a door opened, an impact in public policy, or an ally to strengthen their communities, Indiana Farm Bureau is there. We are the unified voice for all agriculture. To learn more about the benefits of Indiana Farm Bureau membership, go to infb.org.
There's been a growing conversation on this podcast around the accelerated trend of, the idea that food is health for both consumers and food companies alike. How do you see the seed innovator playing a role in this conversation, and how is ASTA tackling this with its partners around the value chain?
Andy, I can start and
Go ahead,
then
Dave.
give you a chance to add in on it. So, to me, Scott, again, it comes back to when I think about when I started in the industry, a lot of it was just around conventional products and traditional methodology. And we're in a phase right now where the consumer really wants to know what's behind the products that they're buying and ultimately consuming and feeding to their families. And I think we've got a great story within agriculture, but I think even more specifically with the technology and the advancements and things that we're doing, from gene editing to plant breeding, bringing in not only just agronomic characteristics that improve the end product, but I think also value added traits and things that also add nutritional value to the consumer. And as we know, consumers are very, very aware or very curious about the things that they're buying for their families. And I think the technologies that we've seen as of late and what the future is going to bring will continue just to expand and build out these value added products that ultimately are regulated from a scientific perspective and ultimately bring value to the consumer, whether it be a health focused trait or compositional change. Whatever that looks like today and into the future should add significant value to the end consumer.
Yeah, the innovation that's already happened in the industry has really been quite remarkable, and it's exciting as we think about the future because, as we've already talked about, everything starts with the seed, and so the innovations that agriculture has come through the seed. Andy, you've got any further reflection on this?
Yes, Scott, it's pretty amazing when you think of what Mother Nature has done to plants and how they've evolved over the years and how plant breeding has helped them evolve and create new varieties or new crops for farmers and consumers. Our breeders are working everywhere from that standpoint of how do we breed in disease resistance or enhance the disease resistance that may already be in the plant. And so a lot of our varieties are enhanced in that way that they can resist certain pests and disease on their own. And so what we've done is we've helped improve their immunity system, much like you do in America, in the humans where you're taking vitamins or something like that. We've improved that through breeding. But we've also looked at how do you improve the nutrition quality, as Dave said, whether it's various vitamins or minerals that are in our fruits and vegetables. There's some examples out there that are just pretty amazing to me. There's a purple tomato that's come out with one of our members, and that purple tomato has improved antioxidants, and the genes are from snapdragon flowers. And so you also have a company now who's developing seedless blackberries. We love our blackberries, but sometimes you get that little seed, caught in your tooth or something like that. They're developing ones without seed. But that high quality product or that high quality fruit and vegetable that's going to taste good, have better fruits, better nutrition and vitamins for you, and you want to eat more of. And so how do we continue to do that? It's a benefit for the farmer if we can create that disease resistant or pest resistance naturally occurring, and then also for the consumer. We also are looking at things like shelf life. So, you got a longer lasting in the grocery store, as well as in your refrigerator at home or on your counter. So a lot of those interesting things that breeders are thinking about as they move forward to improve varieties for the farmers and consumers.
I think the only thing I would add into that, Scott, would be, and again, I think we can't say this enough, that the entire ag value chain starts with farmers, ranchers planting seeds, and again, that can be in a greenhouse, that can be in a very efficient large row crop operation, but we believe that the entire value chain within agriculture starts with seed. And I think the other piece that kind of gets missed along the way is not only with lawmakers, Andy, but I think even consumers don't always know where food comes from. So for us on this podcast and maybe some listeners, maybe not some listeners, I think the reality is we take it for granted that everybody knows what we know and how seed is produced or how food is derived. And, I just don't think that we can sit back and make that assumption. I think we've got to tell our story about how things happen, and eggs just don't show up at the grocery store, right? And I think it's that continual conversation to educate consumers that food just doesn't miraculously show up. There's a system in place, and again, Andy, back to you, that American seed trade is in a very great spot to be on the forefront of being able to feed the world with the food products that come from our members.
It really is, Dave. And you look at it, I try to compare it to like the hamburger. If you think about the hamburger or cheeseburger you're going to eat for that football game or something like that, somebody had to plant the wheat for that bun. Somebody had to raise the cow, but that cow had to be fed grain in order to get your hamburger. Somebody had to feed the dairy cows to give you the milk to produce the cheese for the top of that. A farmer had to plant seeds to do that lettuce, the tomato, and the onion to go on top of that. And also the tomatoes that goes into your ketchup, and all of those various factors start with a seed. And a lot of people don't think that far back, but that farmer has to plant a seed. And we are, hugely thankful for the farmer and the work that they do. And they are very confident in the seeds that they buy from the American seed industry to be able to produce that crop that puts whether it's the eggs and bacon on your plate for breakfast, or whether it's that burger for your tailgate party, those all started with seed. And so we like to tell the story that way. It's an easy story to tell, and we work with our colleagues and peers to help carry that story through the grower organizations as we go forward.
Well, partnerships are really paramount to driving innovation in seed. And Where does ASTA see the biggest opportunities to continue advancing technologies in the U.S. through leveraging those partnerships and collaborations?
So, Scott, I think, and you and I can speak to this very realistically, and I think, as Andy said, we can grow number 2 yellow corn as good as anybody across the globe, right? And a lot of those innovations help us drive productivity on every acre that farmers are growing row crop corn. We also then need to make sure that we've got alignment with national corn growers and others that are through the value chain that help drive demand for that product. They consume that product, whether it gets used in food products or it gets exported or used for ethanol, whatever that case may be. So we need to look at this as a partnership, not only with what we're doing with ASTA and the ASTA members to continue to drive innovative products and productivity, but the other associations, whether it be American Soybean Association, American Farm Bureau Federation, National Corn Growers, Western Growers, Florida Fruit and Vegetable, California. I mean, everybody plays a role in this ecosystem that has to exist for ultimately the output of the products that our members are developing, that actually have to find a home through the value chain that we spoke of earlier.
Yeah, Scott, those coalitions are just invaluable. When the people who use the products that seed companies produce, and they're that voice saying how important it is, how resilient they become, carrying that message not only to legislators and regulators, but also to the public, to the media, and talking about what seed has enabled them to do, or how they've been able to weather some of the various storms and climate activities that we've seen over the last couple of years. That's a great testimonial on behalf of our industry. But we've got to be able to continue to carry that message also to the policy table. And we spend a great deal of time as an association sitting at the table with our friends and colleagues in the agriculture communities, as Dave said, the farm bureaus, the Farmers Union, Western Growers, Florida Fruit and Vegetable, soybean, corn, wheat, sorghum, all of those guys coming to the table to really help drive policy in whatever administration's in the White House. We've got an Ag CEO Council here in town, 25 of my colleagues that are really the leaders in the agriculture community, driving policy and issues on behalf of the farmer. We've got a Food and Ag Climate Alliance that ASTA was a principal in getting started a number of years ago to deal with climate change, climate evolution, sustainability, those factors that farmers play a great role in because that's their goal. They want to pass on that farm that they have. And how do we help drive policy within the federal government as well as our state governments that benefit farmers and the environment in which we all live?
So as you look ahead for ASTA members and the seed innovators at large, what are the big areas of focus the rest of the industry should have their eyes on in 2026?
Scott, when I think about that, and you and I were at a conference last week, and one of the things that has a lot of hype and a lot of conversation in this day and age, and I don't think a lot of us know what is going to become of it in terms of how it will impact how we do business, how we interact with our customers, is artificial intelligence. And I think artificial intelligence is, as we learned last week, there's a long way to go in terms of what its capabilities can do or should do. But I think also the reality is there's not a lot of folks that deeply understand how that's going to impact agriculture and impact the seed industry in particular. But I think that one of the challenges that I took out of the conference last week was we got to get moving, right? You can't sit still. You've got to embrace it. You've got to learn. You've got to educate yourself and find those ways that we can integrate that within our day-to-day business and ultimately how we breed and how we interact with customers, how we just bring that technology along through the things that we need to be thinking about every day. And there's probably more questions than answers, but you won't know that until you get on the treadmill and get on that path forward to learn about what artificial intelligence capabilities really are for the industry and agriculture.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen in our business really for the past 7 years as we've been doing the molecular breeding, looking at the predictive outcome of looking at the genotype, not just the phenotype, and only testing those hybrids or varieties that have the most probability of succeeding in the field. So it's reduced our cost of testing while helping us to advance the better varieties quicker. Andy, you got something?
Yeah, Scott, and you both hit it right on the head. I mean, the AI is really enhancing our ability to breed and to be more predictive in what we feel the outcomes will be, and hopefully enhance that ability to bring new products to market in a more efficient and quicker fashion. So we're excited about where this goes, and it really does enhance what our companies were already doing with predictive breeding over the last several decades. But the other things that we got to keep our eyes on and moving forward, especially when we look at the Midwest and commodity agriculture and corn and soybeans, is trade agreements. When we're entering a whole new, different trade atmosphere than we've been used to in the last couple of years. We know that China has a completely different influence on that marketplace than it used to, or so 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so that's going to be a key one. And how do we deal with our global markets, with Europe, with Asia, with China, India, but also the U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement is coming up for renewal and review next year in July of 2026. Those are our two most important trading partners, Canada and Mexico. Easy access for both of us. How has the USMCA been for U.S. agriculture, commodity agriculture? Right now, Mexico is the #1 corn market in the world. How do we make sure that that market stays vibrant and strong, and our colleagues and friends to the north of us and to the south of us continue to be good customers for us and us for them as we go forward? And then lastly is that market access. What does market access look for U.S. products in the global arena, especially in those developing countries where populations are booming? They're looking at their middle class expanding, and so they're going to look to have additional proteins and additional products that they want in their diets. And so how do we make sure that we have an opportunity to get into those markets and are able to supply them as we go forward? They're pretty exciting, but we're also entering some times like the trade arena that it's going to be challenging, and we've got to be at that table as an industry to make sure that our voice is heard and we're driving that policy.
All right, guys, as we wrap up this Agbioscience podcast, what is the call to action for seed companies that want to have a voice, or really anyone who wants to have a voice, a seat at the table with ASTA, but don't know how to get involved?
I can start, Scott. The number one thing right now is to educate yourself on the work that's being done throughout agriculture. And for those of us that work in it, we feel very passionate about the day-to-day work that we do, as well as the future technologies that are going to come down the road in front of us. I think to me, it's around having that voice and making sure that we're talking about all the things that we do. And I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of people don't know where food comes from. I don't think they also understand the agricultural systems and all the work and all the technology and all the regulations and things that have to happen to bring products into the marketplace. So from my standpoint, it is making sure that you put yourself in those situations to advocate on behalf of the industry, but also to talk about and educate those that may not know everything that we are blessed to know working in this industry. So to me, it's around being an advocate, finding a way to have a conversation with somebody that maybe isn't part of agriculture that wants to know, and for us to tell that story. For companies, Scott, like yours and the one that I work for, it's also an opportunity to bring them through the door and showcase the work that we're doing through field trials and bring them through the labs and show them show them all the things that are going on behind the door that they may not have any visibility to or knowledge of. So to me, the call to action is making sure that we as members or we as leaders within agriculture are telling our story, but also bringing people the experiential side of how it looks and what it is by bringing people into our organizations and showcasing the great products that we deliver.
Yeah, Scott,
Yeah,
when
I
we look at it, I mean, it's important. The association, we are the voice of the American seed industry in state capitals and in Washington, D.C. and globally. But we don't do it without our state associations, regional associations, our member companies. And so it's important that we have everybody involved in this as they go along. And as Dave said, get involved, invite your state elected officials in to see your operation, and meet your team. They vote. That's the important part. Is that those are the people that vote. We can't vote for people out in the Midwest. We're here in Virginia and in Washington, D.C. So we need to have the companies take that step, invite people in to see the operation. You have great opportunities during your field days and demonstration plots. Take those people around and let them see all the things that are new to the seed industry. You then become their expert on seed issues when they arise in Washington, D.C. or in your state capital. But there's no better voice than the actual people who are interacting with the farmers and out there on a daily basis, seeing what the farmer's dealing with, but also what the seed industry is dealing with in those products that we're bringing to marketplace every year for the farmer. So, take that opportunity to be that voice. We've got some programs here at ASTA to help train people if you're not comfortable. If you are going to invite somebody in, we've got a great team here that can give you pointers, things to think about when you bring people onto your operations, how to make sure that you're taking care of it in social media and in your local media so you get that exposure as well as giving that exposure to the person coming into your operation. So we found there's nothing better than when we can bring somebody to a seed treatment facility or somebody's farm in their demonstration plots. And you can touch it, you can feel it, and you can taste it. Really means a lot, and they connect from then on to the seed industry, and they connect to that person in their district or their state that had them out to their operation. So take that opportunity. We're happy to work with anybody in the industry, and not just ASTA members. We'd like everybody to be an ASTA member, obviously, but if you're interested, you're in the seed industry, and you want to tell a story, and you've got an opportunity, please contact us because we want to be there to help out and get that message delivered.
Yeah, big shout out here to all the farmers and ag leaders in their communities who are already doing this. Organizations that are bringing their state and national representatives to the farm, to their businesses, and really just developing those relationships. And I'm really excited about the administration's effort to bring the USDA out to the Midwest. Indiana was designated as a hub for USDA. And so that's exciting to get, those in those positions out here closer to the farm. And we fully intend to engage with them and help make the policies that they're making and implementing more real as to what it feels like for the farmer and it feels like to the seedsman, so that we can fine tune and get those things that help our environment and help our communities, but are also effective legislation towards the economic goals that we all have. Andy and Dave, thank you so much for joining us on the Agbioscience podcast. And thank you on behalf of the entire AgriNovus team. Thank you for listening and watching. We will see you back here next week.
Agbioscience is a podcast by AgriNovus Indiana, brought to you by Indiana Farm Bureau. Produced by Kayla Chittister and Fabian Rodriguez. Photography and design by Kaylee Verstay. Video by Darren Cooper and 1898 Creative. If you like today's episode, subscribe, rate, listen, and review. Get all episodes of Agbioscience online at agrinovusindiana.com.